Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. I'm Tristan Harlan here with my co-host, Cooper Melder. Not our usual setup today. We're actually inside the TV broadcasting booth in Johnny Allison Tower above the Centennial Bank Stadium. Cooper, how we doing today?
Tristan, I'm doing good. This is a different setup, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. The setup process has been a lot different. We didn't think we were going to have a show at first, but you know what? We figured it out. We're here at beautiful Centennial Bank Stadium.
Yeah, we kind of was new things, kind of interpreting, trying to get things to work. Mr. Solomon is on a bit of a hiatus. He did take a trip, so we weren't able to
usually tell you where.
Yeah, we weren't able to be in our typical stomping grounds, but luckily reached out to Brad Bobo, and he was able to allow us to be in here to do this. Special shout out to Zoe for coming with us this morning and setting up the camera and everything and kind of doing a trial run, so to speak. So to kick things off here at Red Wolf Roundtable, we're going to go and dive a little bit into spring football. I mean, Cooper, just a little bit, I think, a week or so ahead of the spring game. What's kind of the big thing that you're going to be looking forward to during that game?
The spring games next Saturday, April 20th. There is a chance for rain, so I don't know how that will play a factor because it is just a spring game. You're not going to want to see players get hurt in a rainy practice. But I'm really interested to see, the guy QB1, to see how he's progressed throughout this offseason in Jalen Rayner. I'm really excited to see how he's improved his game, see if he's improved his passing and his footwork. I'm also interested to see transfer Malik Hornsby, who he was a quarterback at Arkansas, transferred to Texas State. He didn't find his spot there. He didn't get to play quarterback there. Then now he's transferring once again to Arkansas State, where he's transferring from a quarterback position to a slot wide receiver. He has good speed, so I'm going to be very interested to see how he's been able to transition from quarterback to wide receiver.
Yeah, not only that, but you also got to look at some returning faces like a Jaquez Cross or maybe an Ethan Hassler, who Hassler was hurt most of the last season, really was one of the leading factors on the defense during spring camp last year. But just looking at the pack day schedule a little bit, we have they have track and field, tennis, football, and baseball. 9:30 the field events will start for track and field, and 12 p.m. the running events will begin. 10 a.m. for tennis, the senior day will go on when they take on Southern Miss. Of course, we've mentioned the spring game. And then at 4 p.m. at the time, Arkansas State will take on Appalachian State. And I believe that's going to be one of the games I'm getting the call on ESPN Plus. So it's going to be interesting to see how the schedule kind of flips from one side to another. Shout out to facilities management, yes, Nick Grievous, and everybody that involved with that, kind of going from one to another to the next to the last. So, just looking at it, this has kind of been one of the most chaotic sort of spring camps that we've seen, just with how rapidly Jalen Rayner is going to progress into his sophomore year, and Corey Rucker dealing with his side of injuries, But what's sort of the kind of biggest storyline you think we're going to be kind of seeing the most going into spring camp and into the summer?
The biggest storyline is going to be Coach Heckendorf with the offensive coordinator. We've seen on Twitter, fans aren't the biggest fan of him. They're all, it went from calling for Butch Jones's job to Butch Jones, he saves the day and makes Jalen Rayner QB1 to, all right, Heckendorf, what's the problem with him? So I'm going to be interested to see how this offense is going to do, because we saw many times last year where we have the talent out on the field. We've had back-to-back number one recruiting classes in the Sun Belt. There's no reason that we shouldn't be dominating the Sun Belt. We have the offensive and defensive power. So Coach Heckendorf, he's going to need to figure it out, because we saw where offense just stalled out. They would move downfield, get in the red zone, and then penalty after penalty were leading to a field goal, not being able to finish drives, not able to get anything going, quick 3 and outs. So I'm going to be interested in Coach Heckendorf, and really The defensive side, I'm not too worried about. We saw them last year. They did the best they could, but when the offense is not able to stay out on the field and it's 3 and out, the defense has no help.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for me is like I'm interested to see if there's going to be any new sort of schemes or formations implemented within spring going into summer, because I mean we saw last season how available Jalen Rayner is when he's able to move the ball with his legs, or seeing how he's able to use his arm down the field. But the thing is you kind of brought it up. They would move down the field and they would stall out. They would move down the field, they would stall out. But the thing is how long will this last until we see a new formation implemented, maybe a wildcat, so to speak, a wild red wolf, whatever you want to call it. Maybe some more shotgun-based offenses, maybe some more pistol-based offenses. But I really think with the ability Jalen Rayner has, especially with a speedster like Malik Hornsby joining the crew, joining the team, you're going to see more room for these kind of trick plays, because don't forget, Malik Hornsby used to be a quarterback. Mm-hmm. So who's to say we don't run sort of something familiar to a Philly special on the goal line and call it the Red Wolf special, or whatever you want to deem it as. But I definitely think a lot of people are going to be tuned in to different points of view, but the main thing that's going to go over their head is that progression of Rayner.
Yeah, they're going to be really interested, because for the first couple weeks, the Red Wolves looked terrible. I mean, we got outscored 103-3. We got beat 73-0 to Oklahoma, and I think it was 30-3 to Memphis the next week. And then so JT Stroud gets benched. In comes Jackson Daly. He doesn't do the worst. And then, Rayner comes in at the end of the Stony Brook game, wasn't it?
Yes.
And he really brought in something new. And then going into next week, we didn't know who was going to be starting quarterback. And then Rayner gets the job, and we go on a little win streak, go to the bowl game. So progression is going to be really key for him and how he's going to do. And you're talking about implementing a new offensive scheme, new system. With the talent we have, we could honestly see a spread option as quick as Jalen Rayner is, as quick as Malik Hornsby is, as quick as Jaquez Cross. Maybe a little spread pass option. I mean, wouldn't be a bad little offense to run. You have 3 different reads. You could hand it off to a running back, pass it, or have the quarterback keep it.
Right. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how everything goes, but we're going to take a step away. When we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit of the what's happened with bowling. They had a match today, and then we're going to dive more into the world of athletics here at Arkansas State University. Stick around.
I think one of the things I learned at Arkansas State was life is 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you respond to it, and that's just something that I live by.
A-State is home, and they're going to treat you like you're a part of the family.
All right, guys, welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. Now we're going to dive a little bit into the bowling team and how they won against Youngstown State today, 2-0.
Yeah, it was a great win. We're moving on to play Jacksonville State. It's going to be very interesting. They've been runner-ups, and now they have a chance once again to go win that #1 hardware. So shout out to bowling. Keep up the great work, ladies, and, we're rooting for you.
Yeah, now we're going to switch focus a little bit now to men's basketball a little bit. And, we talked about it on the show last week, how Hudson did in year 1, now going into year 2. But here's my thing, Cooper. What I would pose to you is, do you think the team is complete, or do you think they're still missing pieces?
They're a little bit complete, but the point guard role is still up in the air. We have Terrence Ford, but we don't know how his health is going to be, if he's going to be dealing with injuries. And you're thinking, okay, we brought in Joseph Pinion. How is he going to fit with De'Aaron Ford? But those are two shooting guards. Those aren't guys that are bringing the ball up court necessarily. They're more of a guys that you're setting up plays for them to get open, get into the three-point shot. So it's going to be interesting who's going to take over PG number 1.
Right, and you know, the recruits and the transfers that Coach Hodson's bringing in, you know, it's good for the team, it's good for the program, don't get me wrong, but how many times will we see a recruit get brought in just because he played at a bigger school?
I mean, if they're not getting playing time at a bigger school, you're going to want to get them, because Joseph Pinion, he was ranked one of the best shooting guards with De'Aaron Ford in their high school class. Goes to Fayetteville, doesn't really get to play SEC level type play, so him getting players from bigger schools as a Sun Belt school, you're always going to see it. I mean, it's never really going to change. You might get a player from a smaller school that's been averaging 20 points per game to come up to the Sun Belt, or you might get a player that really get in high school, goes to a big school, doesn't get playing time, and they come here to get their playing time that they deserve and are going to be a good player. So I feel like Coach Hodson, he's really been able to balance it out, getting, you know, new recruits, but as well as using the transfer portal, which is taking over college athletics.
Right. So as the team stands right now, who would be your starting 5 if everybody was healthy?
If everybody was healthy, I mean, you'd have to have, I'd say, Terrence at the 1, because, oh, man. Okay, hear me out.
I'm listening. We got time.
DeAndre Dominguez at the 1.
DeAndre Dominguez at the 1.
Yes.
What?
Just hold up. Ford at the 2, Pinion at the 3, Marshall, the transfer from Ole Miss, at the 4, Isaiah Nelson at the 5.
Huh. Interesting. So
because we've seen DeAndre Dominguez really get things going, because Freddie Hicks is still in the transfer portal.
Right.
You're talking about the team now, Hicks is in the portal, I'm acting like he left.
Okay.
So that's when I get DeAndre Dominguez at the 1. I feel like he can attack the rim really well. Might as well just bring the ball up court.
Well, and now you've got my gears turning a little bit here, but we seen last year when he had a little bit of ankle problems, you know, later on in the season. Do you think that's going to kind of restrict him from being that one role? Because, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that's a great idea now that, you know, I'm putting it into my mind and kind of visualizing what that would look like. But I just don't see logistically how that works if DeAndre Dominguez still has the ankle problems that he had last season. And when he's taken, I think he was taking 50 shots a game or something like that, and he was only making like 20 or 30 of them.
But if you put him at the point guard role, you're changing his game up a little bit where, you're setting the offense up where you're going to be getting the ball to players. You're not having to go 100% all the time, because when he wasn't really bringing the ball up court, you had, Caleb Fields setting up plays for him where DeAndre is having to go 99 miles per hour.
Right, and the thing is because you got to remember, still have Avery Felton coming off the bench.
Yep.
You would still have someone like Terrence Ford coming off the bench. Now, and that's where I think the interesting point kind of lies is you would want Terrence to realistically start at the 1, but with him coming off such a serious injury and him being redshirted and him not playing as much this past season, I like DeAndre starting at the 1 early on in the non-con side of the schedule. Work Terrence back into the rotation, kind of get his feet wet, get him used to, running down the court or whatever. But once he turns into the old Terrence Ford that should have won Freshman of the Year, then you kind of switch it around. But from non-con side of things and kind of just going off the cusp, that is a good point. But that brings me that kind of brings me to the next point is, where do you see his game evolving if he does go to the 1? Do you see his passing come up more? Do you see maybe him stop crashing the boards as much? Or do you see kind of a hybrid Russell Westbrook type deal where he's getting these triple-doubles because he can score efficiently, he can rebound efficiently, and now he's going to be able to throw the ball down the court to Isaiah Nelson?
Yeah, well, him missing all of last season really hurt his game. I wouldn't say it hurt his game. I just don't really know what he's going to bring to the table, because if you miss an entire season, an entire season where you're hurt, you're not really practicing much because you can't, you're not playing games because you're hurt, it really takes a toll on players' games at times. So I feel like he's going to come off the bench just because he's going to have to get back into swing of things. I feel like his scoring might drop for a little bit, but I'm not saying his scoring will drop, but I feel like his assist numbers will start to drive up a lot more, kind of like we saw with Caleb Fields this year. He was the guy that was, more like averaging 15 points per game. He gets help. He doesn't have to do everything. He can pass the ball around, and we saw him getting double-doubles every other game.
Right, and like I said, we still got a long ways to go before basketball starts. So things could change. Heck, Isaiah Nelson could run the one at this point because we're so far off.
Headband Zay or something.
What? But we're talking about men's basketball. I kind of want to get your reactions on this too before we send it to break. Coach Hodson reached out on Twitter and said, "Hey, Coach Cal, I know you got that new job down there in Fayetteville. What do you think about our squads intermingling a little bit?" So, coming from your background, what's kind of your thought process behind that? Because a lot of people were flaming Coach Hodson in the comment section, saying nobody cares about A-State.
Well, that's the thing. People want to say no one cares about A-State, but when we reach out to play them, they don't want to play us. I think it's a good idea. Might as well. You're two of the biggest colleges. Why not? It'd be great for the state of Arkansas. It'd be great for fans. It's a win-win for both teams, in my opinion. Now, if A-State went into Fayetteville and won, it'd be even better for us. It'd be a terrible look for Arkansas, but, I like the idea, but I don't see it happening because if you look at the roster for the Fayetteville team, they ain't got nobody.
They only got one guy,
Blake Lawson.
But and I'm sure a lot more players are going to come through recruiting, whether they're high school transfers, because it seems like
Coach Calipari.
Yeah, everybody's going to want to play for Coach Cal.
Yeah, if you're looking at Coach Calipari in Kentucky, Karl Anthony Towns, John Wall, Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Willie Cauley-Stein. I could keep going on, but he knows how to get players to the NBA. He knows how to recruit NBA talent. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, not even just at Kentucky, even during his times at Memphis, when he had Derrick Rose at the one. So, there's so much time between now and the start of basketball season. Our team could the Red Wolves can look completely different than they do right now. Isaiah Nelson could still grow 6 more feet and be 8 feet tall for all we know.
That would be insane.
Yeah, but, regardless, it's one of those things where you're just going to have to wait and see. Speculation is one thing, but, that's what we like to do on this show. We like to kind of go above and beyond and talk about crazy ideas. But, we're going to take another step away. When we come back for our final segment of today's sort of special show, we're going to talk a little bit more about the women's team and see what Cooper thinks about Coach Rogers and how she replaces some of the talent that she's lost so far in the portal. Stick around.
Here to deliver the latest news on A-State sports, ranging from football, basketball, baseball, and more.
I'm your host, Tristan Harlan, alongside your other host, Cooper Melder.
Red Wolf Roundtable is your local sports source.
Tune in to Red Wolf Roundtable to get your fix on sports talk and news.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. Now we're going to switch focus now to talk about the women's team and talk about what Coach Des may be doing in recruiting to kind of replace all the talent that she's lost. Cooper?
Yeah, so this past, should we?
I wouldn't mention exactly. I would just say that
they're bringing in a recruit on a visit who may have averaged 22 points per game at JUCO level.
Yeah, and we're not going to dive into exactly who it was. I mean, the players posted that they took a trip here, but we're not going to dive into that just in case the player decides not to commit here, go somewhere else. But I think, and of course, when we talk about women's basketball, it seems like that's kind of when everybody kind of like perks up and here's what we got to say. But
Yeah.
it's where I'm at with this is I don't think Coach Rogers will go down quietly.
No, she's not. I mean, we know Coach Rogers. We were talking to her the other day, and when she was telling us about this player, she goes, "You already know I'm like that." She was like, "Y'all already know I'm like that." She's just like, don't gotta trust the process. You gotta believe in me. I mean, she hasn't let us down yet with recruit-wise. I mean, just because the injury bug came into Arkansas State and got us last year, there's no way that she doesn't bring in high-level talent, because we see the players that she's bringing in, they love her. They love to interact with her. She has a personality like no other. So if Coach Rogers is going to do Coach Rogers things, I'm not going to be surprised.
Right. And everything's at speculation at this point. There's nothing we know for a true fact or not. But what we do know and what we can report on is that Coach Rogers said that, she's like that and, to be expecting but more talent to come through here. But, even with losing the amount of talent that she has, a lot of people are going to have that great question mark area saying, okay, haven't exactly had a winning season yet. Where do you go from here? What's the next step in the process look like? And I'm at the point where it's like, okay, I get certain people have a certain opinion about Coach Rogers, but
Yeah.
I don't care about it.
Yeah, and the thing is, Lauren hasn't committed anywhere yet. Malin Wilkerson still hasn't committed anywhere
And I'm excited
yet.
to see where they go because they're
They
great
could
ball
come
players.
back. That's
Yeah.
the thing. They entered their name in the transfer portal. They're like, thank you to Arkansas State, and it sounded like basically they're gone. But let's say, okay, Coach Rogers brings in 2 big-time recruits. Let's say they're like, oh crap, they come back. I mean, there's nothing stopping them from not coming back to Arkansas State. Just because they put their name out in the portal, it's kind of one of those, maybe they just want to see what offers they're getting. Maybe they just want to see, okay, what can I do to be like, hey, I'm leaving. Coach Rogers is like, okay, I take that as the challenge. I'm going to bring some players back. I'm going to bring in some talent. And they're like, okay, you know what? I didn't know you were like that. I'm coming back.
Right. In the pool of players in the portal in women's collegiate basketball right now is huge.
Yes.
So, just going to leave it at that. Just be aware. Remember to stay tuned on our social media when it comes to stuff like that. When we know something, we're allowed to talk about it. We'll make sure to post it. But now we're going to kind of switch focus now to the baseball team. The baseball team this weekend has a away series against South Al. Cooper, what are your thoughts on the baseball team?
Well,
That you can actually say.
yeah, I know. I don't like dogging on them. But
Yeah.
because we do go to school with them, it's kind of one of those, like, they know they're struggling. They know they're not playing good baseball. They know that. And, I could come on here and be like, they're terrible, this and that. And, they just can't figure it out. It just seems like there's just a couple things they can't figure it out. Losing Will French was probably the worst thing that could happen to this team. I hope he comes back as soon as possible, fully 100%. But hitting has disappeared. I mean, we've gotten run rolled after run rolled, and then we almost have a win against Troy, and we lose in the final inning. And it's just heartbreaker because we can't, when we do have bats coming alive, we don't have any pitching. When we have no bats, we're having the pitching. It's just, we can never have a complete game.
Right, and it kind of reminds me of that scene from the movie Friday when they're in the kitchen and John Witherspoon, rest in peace, says, you got the peanut butter, no jelly, the Kool-Aid, no sugar. So, just waiting for that complete game for the Red Wolves is kind of where, that's where you're going to see the team come alive a little bit. But
because we saw it at the beginning of the year.
Beginning of the year,
9-0, I get you're playing not as good teams, but they were having fun out there. They're making great plays. It's just, when is that team going to come back?
Right, and like I said, It's only a matter of time before they kind of find that formula. Of course, not a lot of people expected, them to run the table, go undefeated, and win a national championship. They didn't expect them to even win the Sun Belt because the Sun Belt in the preseason rankings had the Red Wolves dead last. So I'm not saying that they can't turn around, that there's not enough time to turn around. But what I am saying is this: something's got to change soon. Whether that's batting lineup, whatever, because Daedric Kell, from my understanding, for last time I looked, he's been playing really good.
And a big surprise for me, Brandon Hager. I don't know what happened to him. Completely different player. Last year, he was batting about 250, not bad, but now it's like he can't buy a hit to save his life. He can't get on base. It's either a sharp ground out or it's a deep fly out. It's just he's in a slump and he's in his head, and all it takes is one hit for him.
Right, and it's like I said, they got the away series this weekend against South Al. They come home to play Memphis Tuesday, and then Appalachian State this weekend.
We got Ole Miss, I think we got Ole Miss this week.
Do we
on
go?
the 16th.
That's right. I'm sorry. I'm ahead of myself. Because I thought it went Little Rock, Memphis, Ole Miss, but it's Ole Miss, not Memphis.
We beat Ole Miss once this year already.
Yeah.
Shout out, Carmack.
Yeah. Hi, Kyler. Hi, Kyler. How you doing? I hope he pitches Tuesday.
What were you saying? When Kyler Carmack comes back into Jonesboro, he's gonna throw the perfect game.
Throw the perfect game, and then he got that one start and he ended up getting shelled. But regardless of that, Tuesday we'll have Ole Miss. They'll have Ole Miss here at the Tom. Weekend they'll have the Appalachian State Series. I'll have game 2 and 3 on the call on ESPN Plus. But look, here's the thing, and there's still a lot of games to be played this season.
Yes.
I mean, the season's not over tomorrow. It's not over after this weekend. I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all the Sun Belt teams make the conference tournament.
Is that? I thought because it's either they changed it to where they all get it, or it's like the bottom 4 teams don't get it.
It's either that or the bottom 2. I know them in basketball, they kind of have it flip-flopped some ways, because at one point I thought it was one, but it was the other.
Yeah.
But regardless, Arkansas State still has time to make the conference tournament. I mean, there's still a lot of games to be played, but, I will condemn Tommy Raffo. Not everybody's favorite Red Wolf head coach, but he's still getting the job done. He's still making it a better program for the Arkansas State baseball team.
He's doing the best with what he has.
Yeah. And he has a lot of good connections. Because, he was at Mississippi State. He came here, and, when you coach at a school for over 16 years, you're bound to know somebody.
Yeah.
But, I'm just excited to see the Red Wolves in action this weekend against the Jaguars. Hopefully they could get at least one win under the belt to come home against Ole Miss with the momentum. Like you mentioned, they beat Ole Miss previously this season. Again, baseball's
it's a wild sport.
It's a wild sport, because no matter what the score is, you still have to go over and throw the ball over the plate to the next guy batting. So, but, like I said, I'm excited. There's still a lot of athletic events here in Jonesboro for the spring term before we go back to good old Cabot, Arkansas for the summer.
Yeah.
But, real quick, I do want to say thank you to Zoe for coming out and running the camera for us. And by running the camera, I mean setting it up and sitting in the chair playing on her phone. But, again, thank you to everybody that made this possible for us to come to Centennial Bank Stadium to do the show today. Sullivan, hope you have safe travels. Hope to see you back soon. And Cooper, last remarks before we wrap this baby up.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. There you go. So, everybody, we'll see you guys next week for Red Wolf Roundtable back in the studio. Hopefully. And then, hopefully. And then coming soon, the Red Wolf Roundtable Award Show will return. Stick around for that.